And also I get that going. I want to make sure everybody meets Ann Schlitt. Anne is taking, you've gotten emails from Sylvie saying as she's transitioning to maternity leave, Anne is stepping in. Anne's been running the Maine program at MDF. So she's used to working with communities and all sorts of multi-sector projects. So where Anne is stepping in, which is wonderful. And if you know,
and as a proud resident of a Main Street community, Beth.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So
every day from the program.
That's right. So I want to make sure you know, you'll see on Sylvie's auto reply directing you to Perry or to Anne. But then again, you guys all know how to reach me too. So whatever works for your needs. I think MDF will do just fine during this chapter of a staff person down. So Anne Schlitt, well, I guess I'll tell Beth. We have 2 municipal economic development directors here from Lisbon and Holton, and then we have 3 Main Street directors from Saco, Rockland, and Westbrook here, which, as I said, is a smaller group than usual, but we're going to dive right in, and I'm going to let Anne, if it's okay, Anne, introduce Beth and just set us off on the plan for our time with Beth.
Sure. So we have Beth Bordowitz here today. She is Maine Retirement Savings Board Executive Director, and she is going to share some stuff about retirement with you. I'll kick it over to you, Beth.
Great. Thank you, Anne and Anne. So I am Beth Bordowitz. I am the Executive Director of the Maine Retirement Savings Board. So I've been charged with setting this program up, the statutorily created program up in, and so I'm going to, I appreciate this opportunity to introduce you all to the program. And it is a small group. So I was going to say you could put questions in the chat, but frankly, if it's this smaller group, if you've got a question and you just want to ask me, that's fine. You know, we might as well make this as much of a conversation as we can with a group of this size. So I'm happy to take questions along the way. I might tell you that I'm just going to get to it in a minute, but other than that, just call out if you have a question or put it in the chat if that's what you're more comfortable with, because Anne will be monitoring the chat. So I'm going to get my presentation on the screen, and hopefully this is going to do it. All right. So hopefully you guys can see that.
Good morning. And Beth Tamra just joined us from Gardner Main Street as well.
Excellent.
Hi, Tamra.
All right.
Yeah.
Good morning. So, all right. Slides are advancing as they should. So what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today is very little about the retirement landscape in Maine, but that's the answer to the why. Why did the legislature create this program? Then really what you care about most, what is merit? What does it mean for employers? And for this case, yourself as employers and perhaps some of the businesses that you work with. And what does it mean for employees? A little bit about our implementation schedule. We are well underway. I'm going to answer some frequently asked questions, come up all the time, and then any questions that you have. And as I said, you can feel free to ask questions along the way if you'd like. So the legislature created this program because we in Maine, as basically in every other state, have a workplace retirement savings gap. So about 41% of Mainers do not have access to a retirement program at their workplace. That's important because people are like 15 times more likely to save if they have retirement savings that's easy for them in their workplace. And the legislature was concerned that workers without retirement savings, relying entirely on Social Security, would not have the opportunity for a dignified retirement, that they would be somewhat insecure, and then the government would end up having to fill in some of those gaps for those 207,000 Mainers that do not have workplace retirement plan. So they adopted an auto IRA program. Maine is not the first to do this. The first was Oregon. They were followed by Illinois and California. So those programs have been around for 7 years. The first one in Oregon started in 2017. You can see that there are 7 states ahead of us. Maine is the 8th to get the program going. And Delaware and New Jersey will have their program started this spring. So they're in the process of implementation. New York is in the process of negotiating their contract, which apparently takes longer in New York than in many of the other states. Minnesota, Nevada, Vermont have all passed legislation and should be getting programs implemented, if not in 2024, certainly by 2025. And there are other states considering legislation. So what that says for Maine and for me is that there is a roadmap to how to do this successfully, which I've learned about. Happily, I have wonderful colleagues in other states who've been really generous with their time and learning, and that we've, of course, used all of that to get our program started in Maine. So what is the program? It is for Maine employers who do not offer a workplace retirement plan, and it does need to be a qualified workplace retirement plan, which is defined by statute, and I have a slide on that. It is for employers who have 5 or more Maine employees. We know that number can change. We have data from a snapshot in time. Employers may hit the 5, and then they'll end up becoming eligible for merit next year. They might drop below the 5. If they're going to then hire to replace that, that's fine. So we know that around that 5 can be a moving target, but basically 5 or more employees. And the way we set up the rule is the employer can choose. So if they know they're going to have 5 employees, this week, or they're going to have 3 this week, and then they're going to have 12 over the summer, they can choose to either say that they're exempt because they have under 5, or choose the time when they have 12, and which is what we hope employers will do, and offer this opportunity to their employees. And they need to have been in business for 2 years. So if you've been in business less than 2 years, you're also exempt. And I've had certainly situations where employers, someone's bought the business, it's been around, but if this has a new EIN, then they haven't been in business 2 years. For employees, they need to be employed in Maine. Although we do have some people, so they need to be employed in Maine, but they don't need to live in Maine. So some of our pilot businesses were in Algonquin, and so we have a couple of individuals who live in New Hampshire who are in the program. That's fine. They have to be 18 years or older, and they need to have a social security number. Those last 2 requirements are federal law, so that's why those are in place. So if you have any one of these types of qualified plans, you are exempt. You can certify that you are exempt from merit. So that's any kind of 401k. If you're a nonprofit, 403b, 403a government plan, a simple IRA or a SEP IRA. Those are all types of plans that will exempt you. And employers are hearing from a lot of different, particularly people trying to sell them retirement plans, telling them you have to do something and to join our retirement plan. And that's fine. I think it's really wise for employers. This is an opportunity for them to look at what they can afford, what kind of fiduciary liability they want to take on, and make a decision that makes sense for them. So they can explore some of these other plans. Yeah.
There is a question, and Beth from Amy. I see her hand up.
Okay, sure.
Beth, these requirements, 5+ employees and in business for 2, are these minimum requirements, or like if you have less than that, can you still sign up?
At this point, no. So if you have fewer than 5 employees, you cannot sign up. Employees can sign up individually so that they can set up their account within Merit and just do automated contributions from their bank account. So they can make it almost like they're doing this. They have, their payroll goes into their bank account, and they can say, I'm going to make sure I send 5% automatically into Merit. every pay period, so every 2 weeks or every month, they can set that up as they want to. But unfortunately, at this time, because of some quirks of federal law, we're saying no one, not under 5. Again, if you're at 5 and you drop to 4, that's fine, but otherwise, not now. I'm hoping that number comes down.
Thank you.
So our primary features of merit are the key automatic enrollment for employees. So then of course, from the employee's perspective, that's automatic. From the employer's perspective, they need to do that enrollment. So the employers enroll the employees. I will say that automatic enrollment feature is going to be found in almost any retirement plan that gets set up at this point, because federal law requires it for 401ks now. So that automatic enrollment is not very out of it's completely in the norm at this point for new retirement plans. Of course, the participation is voluntary. The employees can opt out at any time. We have set up a public-private partnership. So we are using the program manager Vestwell, which also happens to manage the state's 529. So they have a niche in sort of state finance and savings programs that they run. They manage the portal and the record keeping, and then our IRA accounts are custodied at Bank of New York Mellon. So we have 2 very strong private partners that are helping us manage this program. And of course, one of the goals for the board and myself was to make this as simple as possible for both the employers and the employees. So from an employer's perspective, it's pretty simple. They register on the portal, and I'm going to go into a lot more detail about what that looks like. They send the contribution. So once they deduct the amounts from each employee's payroll biweekly, they send those contributions to Vestwell through the portal, and they get contributed to the employee's IRA account. And then they need to go do ongoing maintenance, which just means that if someone has separated from the company, that they get taken off the roster, and if someone gets onboarded, that they get added to the roster, so that we have up-to-date information about the employees. The program does not charge the employer anything for participating in the program. So the employer facilitates the program. They do not pay to be in the program. We have a pretty intuitive and straightforward registration process for the enrollment. And Vestwell makes a big effort to work with payroll processes. And so every payroll processor in Maine is doing this a little bit different. If you're using Gusto or QuickBooks Online, we have a 360-degree integration. There's actually another payroll provider in Yarmouth that just completed a 360 integration. We have other payroll companies in Maine that have done 180 integrations, and there's a whole list of sort of national companies that also have integrations. So Vestwell knows that making it coordinate with the payroll makes it as easy as possible. Again, different payroll providers in Maine are taking different approaches to how they're working with merit. So the details from the employee perspective, the employees will be automatically enrolled in a Roth IRA. They can make a choice to be in a traditional IRA, but if they don't make that choice, it will be a Roth IRA. 5% of their wages will be automatically withdrawn from their paycheck and put and invested for them in the account. That amount will increase 1% per year up to a maximum of 10%. And if they don't make another investment choice, their funds will be invested in first a capital preservation fund for the first 30 days, and then a target date suite of funds that will become more conservative as they approach a assumed retirement age of 65. Of course, the employees can make their choices. They can opt out entirely. It's very straightforward how to do that. They can do it with a phone call. They can do it with going onto the portal. They can change the percentage of their wages that they contribute. So currently, right now, the average in Maine is over 5%. It's about 5.5%. And that's actually true in almost every state. It's higher than the minimum. And the employees can choose their investment options. So there are a couple of investment options. There's the target date suite of funds, the capital preservation fund. There is a fixed income fund and an international equity fund. All of those are low cost passive funds. And within the target date suite of funds, they can choose which what we call vintage to participate in, so that they can choose to be in a fund that might not necessarily coincide retirement at age 65, to make their choice more or less conservative or aggressive. So this is the kind of nitty gritty of how merit works as we get started. So every employer, 9,500 employers in the state of Maine, either received an email on January 17th or a letter was sent. So 7,500 received an email because we had email information for them. Another 2,000 received a letter, and that had an access code to participate in the program. So employers would get that letter, that email or letter. Following the instructions, they upload their roster of eligible employees into the Secure Savings portal. Then the employer's job is done for the next 30 days, and the program will be reaching out to employees and letting them know that they have decisions to make. And we give them 30 days, and we reach out to them 3 times in those 30 days and let them know, if you do nothing, you're going to have those standard choices that I just reviewed, or you can customize your account to change your investment amount or your investment options, or you can opt out. We give them 3 notices about that. After the 30 days, we reach back out to the employer and we say, all right, you uploaded, let's just say 10 names, and now these are the 8 who are staying in the program, and this is how much each of those employees want to have deducted from their payroll and contributed into their retirement savings account. And then the employer begins initiating the payroll deductions, which happens on the sort of next ordinary course payroll. So, they get that message on Tuesday and they're going to run their next payroll the following Tuesday. That's when they would start initiating the deductions. Just so people know, this is what the email looked like that was received on January 17th. In some cases, it may have gone to spam filters. I've certainly heard that. But this is what to be looking for. And more focused, this is the from line. So it's from Merit. It tells you that you're introducing Merit. I will say that the company that I mentioned, Vestwells, our partner, their sort of parent was Someday, which is a name that puts people off and makes them wonder if it's spam. So if they see something from Someday, it's not spam. It was what Vestwell was sort of part of Someday, or they merged at some point. We are working hard on getting them to change that. So just because it really does put people off. So when you, as an employer, enroll, you go to this meritsaves.com portal. It's important. It's meritsaves.com. There is a meritsaves.org. That is basically the portal that I run, the website I run, which will identify when there are going to be webinars or information about the program. They will do this employer verification. So they'll enter their EIN and their access code. People don't have an access code. There's an opportunity to enter an EIN and the system will send you your access code. So that can happen as well. And they'll do this to either start the enrollment process, the registration process, or to certify that they are exempt because they already have a plan. So they'll use their EIN and access code to do either of those things. It's a slightly different click on the website. One says certify my exemption, one says start registration, but it's pretty clear. Once they start that process, if they're going to certify their exemption, it's very straightforward. They did that screen you just saw, and then the next screen comes up and says why, and you can click because I have less than 5 employees, or I have a 401k. So there's a radio button. You click that, you submit it, and then in response, you'll get a code, a a confirmation code saying that you have submitted your certification of exemption, and then you're good and you don't have to do that again unless your circumstances at some point change. But we won't be, you're basically done. It's not an annual thing or anything like that. So this is, if you're on that meritsaves.com portal and you've started completing the information, you'll see on the upper right, the first thing you're going to do is complete your company information, name, address, phone number, main contact. You're going to set the payroll up, which basically means you're going to say, do I do payroll Tuesday or Thursday, Wednesday? Do I do it monthly, bi-monthly? Just put that information in so that we have it. And if you happen to do 2 payroll groups, like you pay one group every other week and one group weekly, you can set that up as well. It's very straightforward. You set up your payment. So that's how you're going to send your employees' contributions to the program. That's putting in bank information, and then you can set up an ACH push, an ACH pull, or you can choose to send a paper check. We have employers doing any of those things. It's whatever works best for them. And then this is a screen where you add your employees. You can enter them manually, but there's this information. There's also, this is the required information. There's also addresses required, a couple of other required fields. We also have a template available that you can hopefully download from either your HR software or your payroll software, fill in the template and then upload it into the system. So it's it works pretty well. It's very slick. I've watched several employers fill it in. It's pretty quick, especially if you've got the template done. You can have multiple people with access to the system. So you can, what we call, invite a teammate. That teammate can be your HR manager. It can be your payroll processor. I know that there are some payroll processors who have asked to be named as teammates and others that have asked not to be. So that's something you would want to check with your payroll processor, how they are handling it. Anyone who's a teammate can access and edit the payroll and employee information in the system. So you want to be thoughtful about who you add as a teammate, but it also is an opportunity for a backup. If one person normally does payroll, maybe they're on vacation, someone else needs to be able to get in. So some key dates. We started our pilot October 24th. We had 11 businesses that were in the pilot. They range from a land trust in Ogunquit and a restaurant in Ogunquit to a daycare in Presque Isle. As part of the pilot, we had accounts set up in 14 of the 16 counties, people ranging in age from 18 into their 60s. So I think it was a very successful pilot. On January 17th, as I mentioned, every 9,500 employers in Maine received that letter. I should also note that we did exempt, if we could match your company, a company to know, we knew that they have a 401k because they have to file a tax filing, we did exempt. So we exempted 3,000 companies automatically because we could tell that they had already filed their 5,500. Indicating that they have a 401k. The important deadlines coming up, April 30th, 2024, employers of 15 or more employees will need to register with Merit, and by June 30, 2024, employers of 5 to 14 employees will need to complete their registration. And those employers will hear from us. They're going to start in mid-March for that first group. They'll get another 3 notices, and starting in mid-May for the second group, again, they'll hear from us to remind them. Some quick FAQs. Seasonal employees, a big issue not only in Maine, but all the other states who work with these programs. So an employee does not need to be registered until they have worked 120 days. So if you know you're hiring someone and you're hiring them for just 60 days or 90 days, they do not need to be registered with Merit. They can count toward the 5 employees though. So what I would say is you can onboard when you do all your onboarding, you can onboard them on day 1. And so I would certainly encourage seasonal employers to consider registering their seasonal employees with merit, because merits goes where the employee goes. So if they have 2 seasonal jobs, then they can be contributing at 2 different companies at different times of years. And that's an opportunity that they might not have as a seasonal employee to have, have workplace retirement savings. And so this gives them that opportunity. So, and then if they come back, as many Maine seasonal employees do, they come back season after season. When they come back the second season, they'll be starting their contributions on day 1. So when they're first registered, again, because of that 30-day period, it could be 45 to 60 days. Maybe there won't be very many payrolls involved, but if they're coming back year after year, then day 1, they'll be able to start contributing. So it is a way to get, those employees contributing. Part-time employees, they do count toward the registration, toward the count of 5. So if you have, 2 full-time employees and 3 part-time employees, you've got 5 employees. That's also true of temporary employees. If there are many companies that offer a qualified plan, but it's not available to all employees, so it's available maybe to their full-time employees, but not all their part-time employees, you are still exempt. So if you offer a qualified plan to anyone, then you are exempt, and actually you can't participate in merit. If you are the business owner, you count toward one of the 5 employees if you receive wages. So if you have W-2 wages, you're an employee. If you take a distribution, then and have no wages, then you're not in the employee count.
Beth, just a quick question from the
Sure.
chat. Does it apply to nonprofit organizations as well?
Absolutely. Yes.
Thanks.
Yep, I did a big presentation for MAMP. We had about 70, 75 businesses or, participants in that presentation. Absolutely applies. Employees who opt out can opt back in at any time. And if you're an employer who did not get an access code, you can, the best thing to do is to email info@mainsaves.org, and I will send you a form to complete, so to get you an access code. And that's my story. If you have questions, I'm happy to take them. This is the information to reach me. I am happy to answer questions. You can send me an email. You can call me. Again, the registration portal, meritsaves.com. And if you want to attend one of our board meetings or check out the legislation or our rules or anything like that, it's at mainsaves.org or meritsaves.org. They go to the same place.
Great,
And
thanks, Beth.
I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you
thank
all
you.
and take your questions.
Yep,
Yeah.
and just a couple things. We're just gonna have a few minutes for questions because we have some transition to some other things. And I'll let Anne monitor the questions, facilitate the questions.
David has his hand up, and then there's a question in the chat. So David, go first.
Okay, 2-part. One's a plug. So I guess this is if, as folks were joining, I think I was mentioning, we had a great collaboration with Beth for our downtown. So I guess this is more a question for the group. If others want to do that same thing for their Main Street programs, what's the best way to engage on that, Beth, to get that webinar set up? And then the question is, coming out of that, I got a lot of questions about like orphaned accounts. And so I don't know if we have the space to cover it here, but that, I would say that was probably the #1 question I got coming out of that didn't come up in our webinar, was just like, hey, what happens to the orphaned accounts and how are people paying attention to that? So thanks for the time.
Okay, so for first question, you can use this contact information that was on the slide, and you will be receiving the presentation. So you'll have that information, or you can and just email me. There is on the mainsaves.org request a presentation. You can fill that in, but it's just as easy to email me and start the conversation if you have the email, because it goes to the same place, however it comes to me. And with regard to orphan accounts, we're acutely aware that there are going to be orphan accounts, and I think that's a issue throughout the retirement industry. even one of my very good friends who had worked for DECD for a while and was getting ready to retire, and I said, you need to find out what happened to your state pension. She found out she had like $20,000 just sitting there waiting for her in the state pension, right? So that's kind of nice to find out as you're about ready to retire. So the orphan accounts are a real problem. They don't usually have 20,000. They usually have more like, $1,000 in them. And so we are aware of that. They, we will be trying to put in as many opportunities to not have orphan accounts as we can to try to keep track of employees. But yeah, they're going to be an issue. I don't think there's a way to avoid it with this program.
No, understood. It was more just, that was like the number one question I got coming out of it.
Yeah, it's a completely fair question. It's a reasonable question and something we think about.
And then in the chat, Tamara was wondering, if you're a non-eligible employee at a company that does offer a plan, can you join on your own?
I'm sorry, so we're not, yes. So let's say like, if I'm understanding the situation, you're like an independent contractor for a merit company, you would end up registering as an individual, right? Because you don't have wages.
Okay, and I can jump in, sorry.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, like, if you let's say you're a part-time employee at an organization, a business that and you're not, or a business who already has a plan in place, and their stipulations are such that part-time people aren't eligible, can you, as a part-time employee, just register on your own?
Yes, you'd register as an individual.
Okay,
Yes.
so individuals can register.
Absolutely.
A couple other quick ones, if that's okay.
Sure. Oh, please. Yep. Well, it's okay with me. The ands have to make a final decision on
Right.
that, but I'm here as long
Go
as you
for
need
it. Can an employee, so they start automatically at 5%, can they like lower that like to
Yes.
3% or okay?
Yeah, they can from day one, they can say, look, I don't know what this is going to mean to me, and let me start with 2 and see what happens.
Okay.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
employers aren't mandated at all to do any sort of match.
They're not allowed to do a match. So employers have no fiduciary responsibility. And
Oh, they're not
actually-
allowed to match?
They're not allowed to match. And that is, again, because the program is designed to assure that employers have no fiduciary responsibility for this program.
Okay, so so they have to go on their own, other route. Okay.
Right. If an employer wants to do a match, then they need to look at a SEP or a simple or a 401k.
Okay. And employers, employees, sometimes employers will say, well, you need to be employed with us for X amount of time before you're eligible. So it sounds like with this plan that employees are eligible like day one.
Day one.
Okay. And is there a handout that we could like print off to give out to our businesses?
Yes.
Great.
Yes. I will send that to Anne, and she can share it with you if that works.
Oh yeah, or even if it's on that website that you mentioned, that's fine. I just know that I email stuff to our businesses, but me walking around in their face is best if I can hand something to them.
Sure. No, absolutely. We have some employer fact sheets.
Thank you.
Comment, question,
Yeah.
mostly comment. I do think the issue about the under 5 employees is really important for hopefully this program to be able to strive for. The numbers, Beth, it's something like, 90% of Maine's businesses are 10 and under employees, but in our downtowns, there are many that are 5 and under, or under 5, I should say. But I like that it includes part-time, full-time. I think that might help a few of the businesses be able to participate. And I'm glad it also includes the seasonal employee in the count, because I think that helps as well, in particular, some of the communities as well.
Yeah, like Oregon is now down to 1 employee companies. They're the only state I think they're the only state below 5 at this point, but I'm happy that some states like Virginia and Illinois started like 25 and up, so that would
Wow.
have really wiped out a lot in Maine. It would not
Yeah.
have been as effective.
But that's the goal. And like, when will it get to that point, or how? Like, is it a legislative
It's
process?
legislative. It will
Okay.
be legislative.
Great.
So
Well,
we're gonna
at
go
a
back and
time,
we're gonna go back and show success and ask for more.
okay. And at a time when that happens, I mean, I know this is in the future, but that's a place where, a rare case when the MDF would write a letter of support for changing the legislation to be for 5 and under, because it's directly impacting all of these guys' businesses in their downtowns significantly.
Right, that's great to know. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right, great. So I will send that fact sheet to Anne, and thank you all for your attention and your questions. And if something comes to you as you driving along or whatever, just you have the number, just call
Yeah.
me, email me. Great.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank
We
you.
so appreciate you coming.
Oh, I appreciate the opportunity. You guys have a great weekend.
Yeah,
Okay,
bye.
bye.
Okay, bye, Beth. Thanks, guys. I know some of you, it would be for your own organizations, but then obviously your businesses. Ross?
Just a quick question. I'm wondering if we can stop the recording here so that we can have
Oh,
that
yeah.
segment to send to our businesses without having all of it. You can start it
Yes.
again for a second segment.